Today I shall now redub Bardock as Bardock the Believable. Hey guys, MasakoX here. After my what if concerning Gine and what would have happened had she gone with Goku to Earth, I got tons of requests about doing a what if with Bardock instead of Gine. What would happen if he went to Earth with Goku instead? As much as I would find that kinda curious, I kinda think it would be very repetitive, or it would be very short. Bardock would just destroy the planet. So instead, let's go a third way. Something that will remain true to Bardock's character itself, as well as appeasing the fans of Bardock who really like him. So in this scenario, for all intents and purposes, Gine will be Lady not appearing in this what if. Bardock is a one Saiyan band. That's right, we're going old school. Based on some evidence from the TV special as well as Daizenshu 7, I present to you my own little special what if for Bardock. What if Bardock convinced the Saiyans? What do you mean convince, Masako? When did Bardock have to convince anybody? Well, remember in the TV special Bardock, Father of Goku, a very fine special I might add, he sensed and predicted, quite rightly mind you, that Frieza was about to destroy Planet Vegeta and everybody on it. In the original special, Bardock returned to Planet Vegeta in order to amass support and an army to be able to take out Lord Frieza as well as his goons. And if you remember correctly, nobody believed a word of him. No one joined his cause, and in the end, as we all know, he decided to take him out on his own, and quite honestly, he did pretty well. He was able to take out most of the Frieza forces there, but still, it could have been better. So what I suggest here is something completely different. Instead of being met with complete and utter disbelief and no one giving a damn about what he thought, I think quite a lot of them would, or at least give him a bit more of time of day. Well, whatever day was left on Planet Vegeta at the time. How would that work, Masako? How would that change the timeline? Well, for the moment, it wouldn't really change much, other than the fact that some Saiyans would survive. But let's try and extrapolate some kind of details based on the characters that we have to play with. A small group of Saiyans, which becomes ever increasing as Bardock explains it, start to ask him some questions and actually quiz him, instead of Bardock just going, "You guys! Planet! Frieza! Frieza!" How does he know about this threat? How can he be so sure whether Frieza's actually going to do it? What are they going to do about it? He suggests that they should go up to Frieza and where he is and take him out right there and then. But that is met with complete and utter silence. No one concurs with Bardock about that. The father of Goku is just there bewildered and slowly getting angrier and angrier that these Saiyans aren't the Saiyans that are supposed to be making their ancestors proud. They're spineless, they're cowardly. They've been sipping off the teat of Frieza for years and now they're all decadent and wanting to party and this is just not how a Saiyan should be. But the facts are clear though, so they are actually a bit more rational than Bardock gives them credit for. There are thousands of Frieza forces up there, as well as Frieza himself, who has a power level of over 500,000. So trying to take them out with maybe 100 Saiyans, and they don't have the moon to help them, yeah, that's kind of risky. What is going on here, Bardock's thinking right now? Have they gotten soft and forgotten their legacy? What's the point of going against Frieza when he's got no support whatsoever? These people are spineless. They've lost their way. They need somebody to help them get back on it again, and they don't have time to be able to give them a pep talk. They need a leader at this very moment, and with King Vegeta somewhere on Frieza's ship, unbeknownst to them, dying, they need Bardock to be able to tell them what to do. After some thought, and really having to swallow his pride big time, Bardock then decrees that instead of going against Frieza directly, they need to escape with as many people as they can and regroup on another planet to be able to launch a counter-assault. You know, he'll get his fight eventually, just not right now. Where? Well, they don't know exactly, but they know a way that they can find out. But for now, they need to get up to where the pods are located and get as many Saiyans off-world as possible to be able to keep the Saiyan race going. They have a lot of technology thanks to the beneficiaries of Frieza's forces, as well as his huge archive of planets in the universe. So they got a pretty good selection. So according to their navigation computers, there are some indeed good candidates for which planets that Frieza doesn't really pay much attention to. And they decide to hit on a planet which is on the very bleeding edge of Frieza's sphere of influence. It's one of those also-ran planets, a really small one, which Frieza didn't really find particularly useful, and has a really small token force on there, just to make sure that the natives don't try and take it back, but it's very, very minimal. A small militia could easily take it out if they knew what to do. Now that they're actually starting to think about it, and they're actually getting into the moment, the majority of the Saiyans are feeling really reluctant to do this, because this is going against everything that they stand for, but, you know, it's either try and survive now and then fight later, or die now without even having a chance. And, you know, they want to have a challenge. Once the Saiyans are about to leave, and they're actually some of them getting in the pods, someone actually extremely important decides to show up for once. And it's the Saiyan Queen. Queen Cassava. Queen? Masako? What are you doing? You're inserting your own season here? She wasn't in the special! Exactly. Upon my research for the Bardock special, I tried to find references of the Saiyan Queen, but I came up very, very short. It doesn't say, or at least I wasn't able to find anything that said, that she died in childbirth or something, kind of like the mother of Chi-Chi. So she might still be around there, just sitting in the throne room when Planet Vegeta originally blew up. We never saw her because Toriyama thought it might not have been important. So instead of just vegging around, I can imagine that she would have heard all the ruckus going on from the palace, as well as people communicating what's going on, as well as potential security footage on their part, and she would want to try and figure out why there's so many deserters going on in the Saiyan ranks. Bardock tells her that Frieza's launching an attack on the planet and taking out anyone that gets in his way, and just then he gets a vision, because he does tend to get them in the most random of times, or at particularly heavy moments of emotional trauma. And he sees the moment when King Vegeta is being massacred by Lord Frieza. The king is dead. Just then, before she can get another word out of him, the scanners and the alarm signals declare that an incoming ship is approaching Saiyan space, and it is indeed, based on the call sign, Frieza's flagship. The Queen taps her scouter and tries to contact her husband, but gets nothing. As she's fruitlessly trying to contact King Vegeta, the rest of the Saiyans, now believing Bardock even more because Frieza's right here, they all start to scurry about whatever pods they can find, some of them doubling up. Bardock pleads for the Queen to give in and try and escape. There needs to be some kind of monarchy wherever they go, but she keeps on doing it and says that she'll catch up or try and figure out something. So Bardock has no choice but to escape himself. So do the Saiyans all successfully escape conveniently for your story, Masako? Well, not all of them, no. A good several dozen of the ships are able to slip by unnoticed by going the opposite way, because now they know where Frieza's ship is, but at the same time, a lot of them aren't quick enough, and they're picked off by the Frieza forces which are scattered about the atmosphere. Their plan is somewhat rumbled by Frieza, and about half of the ships are obliterated in the upper ionosphere. Bardock witnesses the carnage from when he's escaping, seeing that many of his brethren have been slain up in deep space without even having a chance to fight, and he curses his own cowardice. This is not over, Frieza. Before he goes into stasis, he then gets a vision. It's of him and his son Kakarot, all grown up. He survived on a distant world, fighting Frieza, both of them side by side, taking him on. So Bardock takes comfort in the fact that he will see one of his sons again, someday. Months pass, and the Saiyans start to awaken when they're approaching the planet that their computers deemed safe to be able to occupy. They've now realized that this space isn't even occupied anymore. It's been abandoned for several years. What happened? What caused these guys to die? There wasn't a struggle or anything, or at least not an external struggle. Well, based on the logs that they're able to locate, it was deemed that these guys had simply gone insane. The small battalion grew increasingly frustrated that they were not getting any more supplies from Lord Frieza, him deeming it completely unnecessary and a complete waste of money. This lack of communication meant that everybody on the planet turned against each other to be able to say, whose fault is it that they were sent here? No such worry for the Saiyans. Hey, free planet. They dub this planet New Vegeta, and they begin to rebuild, forming a new plan somewhere in the future, but for now trying to get some kind of structure going on, akin to what it was on planet Sadala, or even like proto-planet Plant. Bardock is dubbed their leader and given the title, The Prophet. Choosing not to take this adulation on and not being decadent, he decides to whip these Saiyans into shape again. They'd gotten completely decadent under Frieza, and he was going to change that. After several weeks of this regime, another pod crash lands on the surface. They investigated and realize it has the royal seal on it. It's Queen Cassava. She emerges from the pod, but completely stone-faced. She does not know what to think. Despite trying to contact King Vegeta, she came to the conclusion that he's basically dead. She tried to find Prince Vegeta, but couldn't, and so decided to use the coordinates that were already pre-programmed into every single Saiyan pod that was there. With the Queen present, the motivation of the Saiyans around there starts to increase, and they decide to get into the fighting and the training even more now. Years pass, and the Saiyans become stronger and stronger. They're getting into the spirit of the situation. They're able to form a colony and a society. There are babies being born. The Saiyan race is starting to rebuild, free from Lord Frieza. They are able to manifest their own destiny again. As far as Frieza's concerned, he thinks that he took out all the Saiyans on there, or whoever tried to escape. The planet's gone, so hey, he can just go about his own business. He has no idea they're on this little piddly planet. Bardock, now the Saiyan General, decides to hatch a plan to be able to try and boost their ranks. Capture Prince Vegeta. From what he could gather, based on Queen Cassava and what he actually was able to find out himself, Prince Vegeta was in the charge of the former Saiyan General Nappa, and is currently being one of the dog's bodies for Lord Frieza, thinking that his entire race is dead and no one's around to take him away, so he's got kind of a life of servitude. The Queen was able to give him this information, but it's extremely limited otherwise, but for Bardock, that's enough. So with that, Bardock shrugs and then heads off into the stars to try and locate Prince Vegeta and bring him to the Saiyan fold. Relying on his future powers more and more these days, he just blindly heads off into the stars waiting for a premonition. After weeks of nothing, Bardock is snapped awake with the premonition that he was looking for. He's managed to find Raddatz, who is currently on a planet fighting solo. It's a very weak planet, mind. But then wait, Nappa is there too. They're both pillaging a planet that he recognizes. He then touches down on said planet and begins to scout about for any Saiyan interference. It doesn't take him long because he is an experienced fighter. He manages to find Raddatz and Nappa, currently sleeping off a huge meal, and decides what to do next. Bardock spots that they're wearing scouters. He completely forgot about them. He destroyed his years ago. So they ping alive, and then they both find out there is a Saiyan nearby with a huge power level. But Bardock decides to act right now and takes out Nappa, knocking him out. Raddatz rounds on the assailant, but then quickly realizes that it's his father. Before he can actually spout out the words, "Fa!" Bardock then goes and motions for him to take the scouter off. Raddatz carefully turns off the scouter on Nappa's head, and they actually sit down to talk. Bardock then informs Raddatz of the truth. Planet Vegeta was destroyed by Lord Frieza, and that they need to escape right now. Raddatz, Nappa, and Vegeta were not made aware of the fact that Frieza destroyed the planet. They just thought it was meteorites. He then informs his son that some of the Saiyans are now forming a new colony on a distant planet. Realizing that Prince Vegeta isn't here, he then asks his son to relay a message about this whole new colony and for the prince to join them in the near future if he can. He then hands Raddatz the coordinates of the planet. Bardock can see Nappa slowly stirring and decides to take his leave. Once Nappa's woken up, Raddatz then tries to inform Nappa that the whole planet was destroyed and that all thing that Bardock told him, but the general decides not to believe a word of it. Raddatz decides to try his luck back at Frieza HQ when he tries to tell the prince about the news that his father relayed to him. But Vegeta doesn't believe him either. Apparently Nappa snitched to Vegeta earlier on that Raddatz had gone crazy or something like that. Raddatz begins to get desperate, but Vegeta's had enough. He swiftly punches Raddatz in the gut and says to him quietly, "One more word out of you, and you'll have to answer to Frieza. Clear?" Later that night, realizing that he can't get through to the prince or Nappa without risking his own life, he takes the coordinates that were handed to him by his father and heads to the planet, going rogue. Sans Vegeta and Sans Scouter. Remember, Raddatz is a very cowardly and cautious person at this time. If there's a chance for him to actually, escape, and there are Saiyans there, and his father's there, he's gonna take that chance. When he arrives on the planet, Raddatz informs Bardock that he wasn't successful in convincing Vegeta to come with him, which angers Bardock greatly, and he is very disappointed in his son, thinking that he's a complete and utter coward. He didn't die for the cause, he ran away! But all they can do now is wait for another opportunity to try and convince Vegeta to come. It's right here that Queen Cassava steps up and decides to try and help herself. How exactly? Well, we're gonna have to wait until next time. So there we go. Here's what might have happened had Bardock managed to convince a certain number of Saiyans to join his cause. they might have had a chance to survive and regroup and take out Frieza at a future time. Of course, this is just one potential scenario about what might have happened, because Bardock and the Saiyans could have easily just gone up and taken out Frieza right there and then, but we wouldn't really have had a story, now would we? This seems like kind of a thing where they'd have to weigh up their options. Bardock becoming a de facto general, having to actually strategize and stuff like that. This idea is the most intriguing and the most compelling and the most dramatic. And also, it brings into the equation Vegeta's mother. How much of an impact could she have had she actually been used in the story? Now she's around, we can find out. So what do you guys think? Do you like the idea of seeing a Queen Saiyan? Do you like the story overall and you think Bardock looks really cool? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Until the next one, be sure to like and subscribe. Catch you later!